Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to another chat with Matt. I hope you're well today. So here's a question for today's chat. How do you assess the performance of your sales team? What are some of the metrics and measures that you should be looking at to know whether your team is being effective, productive, call it what you will, and of course is delivering what you need within your business? So I thought there's no better person to talk about this than James Barton, who is, as you may know, if you're a frequent listener of Chat with Matt, he's been on here a few times and he's back again because we can't keep him away, if truth be known. James, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much, Matt. A little bit hot, I have to say. It's very warm here in the UK unusually, but all good. Glad for the heat, I suppose.
But the one thing we do know in the UK is what follows a bout of heat is definitely going to be thunder and downpours.
That's tomorrow.
Exactly, that's tomorrow. So let's talk about this area. And I think if you're a seller, you're a sales director, anybody in that kind of function, this is going to be interesting because you're going to talk a little bit about, I think you call it the Magic 7. Give us a bit more on that, if you will, please.
Okay, so I was asked to have a look at finding a way to be able to assess a sales organization performance and then be able to benchmark it and compare it, because one sales organization is different to another. So how do you actually know, if you're a sales leader, how do you know if your sales team is performing well or not? You don't know, apart from you might be making some good numbers, but how does those numbers compare to maybe other organizations? So what I started to do was to have a look and have a think about how we could create effectively a balanced score, something that would be able to say your score is 80 out of 100 or 90 out of 100 for a sales organization. And of course, with a balanced scorecard, what you need to do is have a number of metrics that you can then go and measure, and those then create that balanced scorecard. And that's when I came up with the Magic 7, which are surprisingly 7 metrics, which are there to be able to indicate the performance and health of a sales team. Okay, and I'll give you these the Magic 7. The Magic 7 are sales pipeline value, average deal size, sales funnel leakage, get my teeth in for that one, time to close, conversion rates, customer acquisition cost or CAC, and customer lifetime value. Now, if you're able to measure those 7 items, my belief is those combined together will create a sufficient data to be able to give you an assessment of your sales team's performance.
Okay, so let's run the tape. You look at those 7 areas, the Magic 7 as you call them. You get a set of data out. You know that data is interesting, but without insight, it's just data.
Very true.
So what are you going to do? You get all this information, and then practically, how do you then use that to start giving you some decisions to make? So,
because of the amount of organizations that we work with, we're able to get a benchmark score against each one of those values. So you're able to see very pictorially on a radar graph or a spider graph, whatever you want to call them, exactly where your team is compared to where it should be, and where your areas are strong and where they're weak. And what we know is if you can make them all strong, if you get a really well balanced team across all of those 7 items, your sales team is going to absolutely fly. Now, of course, the beauty of a balanced scorecard is, for example, some things like, average deal size might not be massively important to some companies, but massive to others. In the same way that a customer acquisition cost may be irrelevant to some companies because of the way that they sell, but massively important to others. So that's why we can use the balance, the weighting system, to be able to reflect the importance of the organization and still get that nice round, hopefully round looking graph or 7-pointed graph.
Makes sense. So you then, let's say you identify an area, average order value. Let's take one of those examples. Yep. Average order value on your balance scorecard is not where it should be. So what? What do you do next?
Well, certainly if you were to look at this from any normal point of view, you always work on the one that's lowest first, because that's going to give you the biggest margin. So when your point of view, average deal size is low, that's when you can instigate things like coaching as a service, and really start to drive that up. Work with the marketing team. You'll hear me talk about a lot that it's no longer sales and marketing is just selling. And that's because you've got to get people to come together to make that sale. But focusing down on the average deal size and giving the salespeople one area to focus on rather than 20 often gives far better results, because they're focused on, I must get that deal size up. What strategies, tactics can I use to get that up by 10%, 5%, 1%? I mean, the great thing about average deal size is that's one of the greatest multipliers. If you can improve that by 10%, the impact on your bottom line is extraordinary.
Do you think any of those seven of your magic 7 are universal across all customers?
Well, they're all universal. They just have slightly different weightings by different organizations because of the way that people sell and what products they sell. But I specifically chose those 7 items to apply to every sales organization that I know as being universally important. Now, you know, the problem with any of these sort of projects, there's 30, 40, 50 different metrics you could choose from. But actually for me, if you boil everything down, these ones are the real power levers.
And what frequency or cadence do you think you should be measuring and reviewing those 7 against or on?
Well, quarterly minimum, but there's no reason why you can't do that monthly, because it's based on some relatively simple numbers. The other reason why we built this tool was you can get so stuck into the complexities of CRM analysis, you miss some of the basics. And actually all of those can be calculated very, very quickly from data that is readily available, whether you've got a CRM or not. As long as you've got some financial information in your sales, it's easy to find.
And actually that's a really good point in terms of where do we start. So let's say you're an organization who is either new to a CRM, or the CRM is in its infancy, maybe even not being optimized properly.
Yep.
Where do you start? So you've got your 7 metrics. What's your best advice on starting on this journey to be able to really make this information useful for you?
Well, start at the top. Start with sales pipeline coverage. If you haven't got enough coverage, you're not going to last that long.
Yeah,
so the 7 that I read in order is the order in which I'd work them through.
Okay.
So again, let me just repeat that for you. So that is sales pipeline coverage. Average deal size comes in second. Third is sales funnel leakage. I can never say that. 4th is time to close. 5th is your conversion rate. 5 is your customer acquisition cost, and that twice. 7 is customer lifetime value. I can't even count. Look.
And you were doing so well.
I was doing brilliantly, wasn't I?
You were doing so well. I think it was the leakage one that threw you.
Sales funnel leakage.
Sales funnel leakage. That one threw you a little bit.
I'm going to say that before I do a presentation again to articulate my lips.
As we always say on the chat with Matt, make sure you practice. Make sure you practice. But
the arsonist had oddly coloured feet.
Now we're going off at a tangent, so I'll bring you back into this. The 7 that you're talking about and the way that you just described that in order is interesting, because actually we talk about lead and lag.
Correct.
So some of these are going to be leading indicators. Mm-hmm. By that we mean what you've got in the short term or what you need to be doing in the short term, and some of those will be lagging indicators. So and I guess that you've chosen those 7 to have a blend of both of those for a reason.
Correct, yeah, because you've got to have a blend of all of those to get something that is one tool that can do that job. Otherwise, if you always focus on leading, you miss out on the lags. You always focus on the lags, you miss out the leading. There has to be a balance.
And in your experience, James, across those 7, where do you think organizations disproportionately focus today?
They will focus mostly on average deal size, time to close, and coverage. They don't spend enough time focusing on customer lifetime value and customer acquisition cost.
Okay, and of course they are vital for profitability and margin.
Correct.
Everything else, yeah, I think I'll agree with that to a point. I think what I've experienced is a lot of organisations focus too heavily on the lagging indicators.
Yeah.
So
customer acquisition cost particularly is something that people don't want to talk about, because when you actually realise how much it costs to acquire certain customers, profitability falls to the floor, but it's very easily hidden.
Right, so let's wrap the chat up today with, and I want you to do these slowly. It's going to help you, by the way, by doing them a little bit slower, so that if you're listening to this or watching this and you're a seller or a sales director, you're going to leave this chat today with those 7 areas that you can dial up or dial down as needed to make you more successful. Now's your time to shine, James. Go.
Number 1, sales pipeline value. Number 2, average deal size. Number 3, sales funnel leakage. Number 4, time to close. Number 5, conversion rates. Number 6, customer acquisition cost. And number 7, customer lifetime value. I feel so validated.
Magic. You did so well. And actually great insight from that perspective, so that anybody who is in a sales role listening to this can think about those 7 areas, and they're going to make them more successful if done well. So appreciate your insight today, James.
You're more than welcome, as always.
And as we always say to you on this chat, if you can take one thing, one marginal gain away across those 7, and you're focused on one to make you more effective, what would it be? Worth giving it some thought, because actually if you can really apply that marginal gain, it makes a positive difference to you, to your organization, to your family, to your friends. It's got to be worth doing, as we spent 10 minutes today on a chat with myself and James. So James, thank you.
Always.
For the rest of us, take good care, and we'll see you very soon on another chat with Matt.